Welcome to the Minnesota Liberty Network, and here are your hosts, Bill Liskey and Drew Roach.
Welcome back.
Bonus episode, huh?
We're going to have a couple bonus episodes, it sounds like.
Fun time.
Hey, we got 4 people in studio today, which is really cool.
Important. Very, very, very important.
Yeah, and let's talk about why it's important. I'll let you hit it. You
Yeah.
want to hit it first, or you want me to go?
Absolutely. The reason why this is an important episode and why we're really excited to have these 4 people here today is because, everyone's aware of the battles that we have in the state as far as, Democrats versus Republicans and how Democrats have had trifecta control over the legislature for the last, handful of legislative sessions. But there's another battle that's happening in the state that people need to be aware of, and the importance of where we're at in the history of Minnesota and how we go ahead and continue to maintain our liberties and move our state in a direction of conservatism. And that is the battle between the establishment and grassroots in congressional districts. And as if people that are paying attention out there realize that it's important that CD2 has been working very hard over the last 10 years to grow into being a grassroots congressional district, and we've done a really great job of being that. And what we need to do and make sure it's of high importance is that we continue to be grassroots and grow the grassroots movement even further.
Yeah. I would argue that CD2 has been the stronghold of grassroots movements in the state of Minnesota. We've held strong. We always stand up for what the people want to say. It's not about who picks, who chooses winners and losers. It's about the people picking who represents them.
Yeah.
And so, this is a quick shout out to what's happened around the state so far. There's been a couple of congressional district conventions already. CD7, Nathan Miller and Brett Bussman, they won their elections. And so they went on to, they represent very well the grassroots movements. And then same thing with CD4.
And Steve Boyd in that.
And Steve Boyd with another position in that as well.
Yep.
So CD7 went really well. There was a lot of people. The one thing that I think is important to note is that everybody voted for those people. Not everybody, but generally speaking, they support the mix of individuals that are now representing CD7.
Yeah.
And yesterday was CD4.
Yep.
CD4, we had I think Dale Zorb, I believe, is going to be representing CD4 at the state exec committee.
Correct.
That's a pretty big deal.
Well, and even going back to CD7, which is almost as significant, is finally the Otter Tail
delegates got seated.
Absolutely,
at least the majority of them.
And that's a battle. That's a battle that we've been trying to have for the last 4 years, 2.5 years, is to get them seated, get them heard. And they are, they were the epiphany of grassroots in the state that were getting just crapped on by our state leadership. And so within the party, and now that we have new leadership, we want to continue to maintain this grassroots effort that these 4 wonderful people have helped to do in CD2. And so we think it's of dire and significant importance that at coming into 2026, probably the most crucial election the state has ever seen. We are at the precipice of losing the state and winning it back. Now is not the time to change executive boards and executive committees to an establishment-based committee, but continue to have those grassroots, because we need to have those low propensity voters, those voters that helped Donald Trump win in 2024, to continue to come out to the party, to have their voice be heard, to participate in the process. And I think these 4 people really help with that.
Yeah, and so let's get right down to it. Let's talk to the first 2 guests that we have. We have Sara Dutton and William Beck. They are current members of our executive committee in CD2, and I've enjoyed working with them for the last 2 years, and I greatly support these 2 individuals. So welcome aboard, Sara and William.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to start with a really easy question. We're going to lob up a really easy one first. It makes it easy for us. So the thing that we know is you guys are running for offices, right? And I think you guys are running for something one of you is running for the same position, and one of you is running for a different position. So I'm going to start with you, Sara. Sara, I think you're running for secretary. Is that correct?
I am. I'm running for re-election for secretary. I am the current secretary and running again.
Okay. Can you describe to us what does the secretary do? Like, what do you have to do? I personally get to watch. I know how tough these jobs actually are. But explain it to the rest of our viewers.
Yeah, it's not really a glorious job. It's not the most exciting, but I argue it's very important. Everybody knows, obviously, I take the minutes every month when we get together. But there's a lot of behind the scenes that has to be done. So answering the questions of, knowing the Constitution. I know it thoroughly, the state Constitution, our CD2 Constitution, and I often have to reference BPOU constitutions for a lot of questions that I get. So, having the ability to kind of nerd out on knowing that kind of stuff, which is fun and important for me. And then doing, the odds and ends stuff, holding us all together by, just being the person to just try and get things done when everybody needs little things. Joe needs a press release written. Natalie needs help making a lit piece. William's needs some help getting an event together. So kind of organizing and getting that kind of stuff done. And then ultimately, all of us sit on a board of the CD2, and our job is to make sure that we get good candidates across the board and support our endorsed candidates. So there's always the campaigning piece of doing those kinds of things and knocking doors and giving out flyers and attending events and making phone calls and writing text messages and statements and literature pieces.
So the
it's a lot
secretary
of stuff.
position sounds like a catch-all. You pretty much have to.
Sometimes.
You get the grunt work.
Yeah, sometimes.
Sure.
And
so,
keeping the ducks in a row. You got to reach out to these BPOU chairs, make sure they're showing up and, sending their committee members and
I know
keeping track of everybody.
I know the other one that is keeping track of everybody. The other one that I know we've referenced in our own BPOU, and some other people of our BPOU have reached out. Who gets to be a delegate? Who gets to be an alternate? You get to be in charge of the list, don't you? That's the hard part. So you have to answer a lot of those questions.
It's true. Yeah.
Okay. So that brings us to William. William, you're running for a different position than what you were last time, and what you currently are.
Yep.
Tell us about that position.
Yeah, so when the former deputy chair stepped down, when he became an endorsed candidate for office, I ran, and the full committee elected me to become deputy chair. And of course, this was in the midst of that crazy primary we had last year, so it was a big crash course on the position. I'm now running for delegate at large, which it's a position that lets me focus on special projects more so than leading when in the chair's absence. So
Sure.
that can be anything from, well, one, whatever the chair needs, but two, I want to focus on like local elections, school board, city council, county commissioner seats. And these are positions that the Democrats have run roughshod over for years, and it allows them to step into higher office. And
I was going to say it's the positions they take advantage of.
Right.
Exactly.
From Peggy Flanagan on her days on the school board, things of that nature.
Yeah, and
definitely.
we just don't have that on our side. Not that elected experience means everything, but it helps you to kind of know your constituents, have that experience they could put on a political resume. So that's something we need on our end if we want to win at the congressional level.
Well, we appreciate you running for sure. It's looking great. Drew, you want to ask him one of these next questions that we got listed out?
Yeah, I can kind of ask on my own here. So I know both of you two have experience working with candidates. So if once you guys want to maybe touch on some of your other political experience and candidates that you have helped get over the finish line and who you guys have worked with.
I'll go first. Obviously, I worked on your campaign.
Sure did.
So that was a really successful campaign. I was really honored to work with you because you're a great candidate. Might be a little biased. One of my favorites. You too, Bill. I did like working with you too. But yeah, it's sometimes not fun, but for the most part, as long as it's a good candidate that has good values and you agree what they, stand up for, it's great to put in the work, to make the phone calls, to knock the doors, to write the literature pieces, to answer all the questions, to make sure that you're following all the rules. It can be a lot, but it's a lot of fun. So yeah, I enjoyed working obviously on your very successful campaign. We were able to raise, quite a bit of funds and spend very little. I think we've been looking at the numbers. It was right around like 75 cents per vote to get you across the finish line. And that was pretty amazing. I volunteered a lot also with Bill's campaign, which was fun. That was my first experience working on a primary campaign, helping out with the primary campaign, which is a whole nother beast. Pretty fun, but that kind of got my foot in the door and gave me some good experience that I then was able to work with a congressional candidate in a different district and ran a very, very successful primary campaign for that candidate. also volunteering just on various campaigns from governor to lots of school boards, city council, mayor. I've done a lot at the local level too. So I'm really glad that you're going to take the time to work on that because it does need a lot more attention than it gets. A lot of them have no idea what they're doing and they can be so successful if they just have that support. So, yeah.
Okay, so you worked on my campaign, Bill's campaign, both winning campaigns. So you have experience, not just working on campaigns, but making sure that those candidates get across the finish line and winning,
Yeah.
which is what we're looking to do, right?
Yeah.
We don't just want to have candidates that we have that run for office, but we want to have winning candidates get across the finish line.
Definitely.
And I know you were a huge part of my campaign, obviously, but on top of just working on the campaign, and helping raise funds, you had a lot of value in writing literature. I mean, I think you created every single one of the flyers that I put out, which, when we would send those out to other members in office that, to, get their thoughts out of it, people were really excited to see some of the work that you did. So I think it wasn't just helping out in campaigns, knocking doors, but also creating flyers and helping raise funds. So
I think
really
the most
important.
important thing that she throws in there is she also understands what it takes to win. If you're constantly working on campaigns that don't make it through, maybe you don't know or you don't see the fine details that might come into play in a winning campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And campaigning is, you have two options. You either just go out there, throw your name out there and hope for the best, or you actually go out there, do the hard work, which is the fine details, and then you get the win.
Yeah, there's a lot of strategy. There's, and it's definitely a fail and fix and redo situation. I mean, I don't have all the right answers.
Nope.
I've messed up a lot, and I've had unsuccessful things that I've done in campaigns and wildly successful things. So it takes a lot of experience of going through those those battles and failing sometimes and learning what you have to do better. So
And I think the best part
that's
is
what's led to that.
I think the best part is you did it from the ground up.
Yeah.
It's a grassroots approach. It's not a big money approach. It's every person counts, and you're working towards that. So,
Yep.
so William, I think that leaves you with answering what your campaign experience looks like.
Well, I love working on campaigns. First of all, it's a lot of fun, especially primaries. But we don't need to get into that. Ever since college, or out of college, I should say, I was just kind of looking for where I need to be plugged in, like who needs help, who needs this stuff done. So I would door knock for various campaigns. I'd make campaign logos and literature.
Never heard of such a thing.
Yeah, right.
Oh, wait, that's right. He designed my first flyer for my endorsement, and he also designed my sign.
Mhm.
So if you ever see a Whiskey for Senate sign, that's thanks to this guy right here.
Yep. And more recently, I've worked with Tom DePel, so I worked on his state Senate campaign. We won a primary there. We just narrowly lost the general election, but for his state house campaign, we had a very successful run at it.
And it wasn't an easy one.
No, it definitely wasn't.
It was a very
close.
hard ran race.
It was a swing district, which CD2 is a swing district, by the way, despite the last election
Yes, it
results.
is.
So yeah, I have experience, obviously, door knocking, copywriting, putting out emails, mass texts. I do fundraising letters. Obviously, I can talk to people at the door. That's one of the most important things in politics. And on top of that, I was the campaign manager for my wife's successful city council campaign.
So you know
This
what it
last
looks
time.
like for those small campaigns.
Exactly. Yep. And that's
And
why
the
I
big
think we
one.
need to put more of an emphasis on those local ones.
Yeah, because small ones breed bigger ones. I mean, that's the reality. Is if you can get your voters out that generally support your message, even at a lower level, it gets them a reason to go out and vote for the bigger seats.
I know we say lower level, and I don't think
I don't mean lower level.
I know what you
just
mean.
smaller
Exactly.
number
Oh, yeah.
of constituents.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I would argue, and I think the city of the residents of Farmington would agree with you that those city council races sometimes are the ones that affect your life, your
Way more, right.
backyard more so than
sure.
anything. So I think
Totally.
I appreciate Will's work on working on city council races because those have the most direct effect on people. And so we need people that have their eyes on those types of campaigns and those races because they are of significant importance in the state and the communities that they live in.
Yeah, one of my friends that I made in the campaign, Joe Odendahl, he always says county before country because the local elections matter
100%.
more on a day-to-day basis than the higher level. So,
Yeah.
so absolutely. So We got the biggest and the toughest question. It's going to be the hardest one. It's going to be probably the most important, especially over the course of the next week while we're getting ready for this convention. What do you guys? Why are you running? Give us the plans. What's your plans for the future, and what's your plans for CD2?
Well, I'm running for all the things that I've already done for CD2. I'm running to keep it grassroots. We talked about the different battles that we had. We talked about the grassroots versus the establishment and why it's so important. And I don't necessarily think anybody running against us is a bad person. I just happen to like the team that we have. I think we're a great, diverse team the way that we are. I mean, I think a lot of people don't know it, but we have a lot of 3-2 votes in our executive committee, and it's a big deal. I mean, that's important. That means that everybody's voices are being heard. We're all bringing a different perspective to the table. I can't tell you how many times I've come to the executive board and said, like, hey, I wrote this and I think we should release it as a statement. I've got one here I'll talk about in a minute. I will come to it. I'll say, like, let's vote on it. Everybody, like, support me. Let's do this. And it's like, well, hold on. Let's wait. Let's talk about it. And everybody has a little bit different piece where it's like, I think we should change this and we should change that. And it becomes a really great collaborative, successful statement that goes out. And I can appreciate that. I can appreciate sitting on a board with people that don't always agree with everything that I say. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes I don't agree with everything that every member in our board does say, but that's what's important and that's what keeps us grassroots. If we're just taking our marching orders and following them and we're all like, yep, we're in agreement, let's just do it. We don't have those important discussions and we don't have the ability to refine things to make them the best that they can be for CD2. So going forward, my focus is really on unity. It starts with the statement that I have prepared that'll be going out in email soon and will be hopefully talked about at the CD2 convention that talks about, some of the things that have been going on in the party with our former chair, David Hahn. And, there's been some things that have come to light with donations of money or not donations, but payment of money to an individual that came from our own donations that we made to the party and what that looks like for us and how we feel about that. And so this statement is just, our way of standing up as CD2 and saying, like, we don't agree with that. We're not okay with that. CD2 voted in 2022, had a vote of no confidence in the chair. And there was reasonable doubt at that time in his ability to do things. I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't think any of us think he's a bad guy, but we could see the writing on the wall. We've led the charge and looked into these things and seen that, something's going on and we got to do something. And I'm glad that we had a change of leadership. So going forward, our focus is unity. We're excited to work with the new board at the Republican Party at the state level and see where we can go and make sure that we can elect and get across a great candidate in 2026, both at the CD level and the state level races too. So that's my focus. My focus is continuing to work my butt off for our endorsement process, make sure that that stays the way that it is because it is so important, and make sure that we work for our endorsed candidate, get them where they got to be.
Sure. So basically, Sarah, what I'm hearing from your messaging and the resolution, I think, is what you're talking about. Everybody that supports the idea of calling out David Hahn and that would really like to have our party go more towards the grassroots should show up to the convention so that they can vote on this resolution.
Yes, show up, come to the convention.
Support this resolution because we need help. Without us speaking up and expressing what we think and what we feel, especially through like a resolution like this, sending a message to the party, to the state party, how else do we get our message across? And so without participating, hopefully everybody will show up. Hopefully everybody will come and participate in voting on this resolution.
Yeah, I hope they do. I mean, show up. We need to continue to have a voice. We need to make sure that all these bad actors know that, CD2 isn't the group, the organization, the congressional district free to come into and tell us what we're going to do. We're truly grassroots. We're here. We're free thinkers and That being said, we're ready to work together and have a sense of unity within our congressional district and within our state, and make sure that we have the right focus going forward.
Sounds good. So, William, what's your plan? I think you already touched on it a little bit. Maybe this will give you another opportunity to delve in a little deeper.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what Sarah said, I'd probably say the exact same thing. You know, I went to the state executive committee in place of Joe 2 or 3 weeks ago now to stand up for the grassroots when we were debating a resolution to condemn the organization Action for Liberty. And regardless of what you think about Action for Liberty, and I'm speaking for myself here, I don't think it's helpful to be putting out statements that attack conservative organizations. You know, even if I don't agree with everything that they say, it doesn't help us unite. I think we have to listen to both the grassroots voices and maybe some of the more self-described moderate or establishment voices. Because at the end of the day, you know, we're all trying to win. We're all trying to turn this congressional district red. So I think we're doing a good job of that as a board. I think we're giving the grassroots a voice, and we're fairly giving everybody who wants a voice a seat at the table. In terms of what my actual plan is, I think Natalie's done a fantastic job with the delegate at large position. You remember the Lincoln Reagan dinner?
Yep, I was
a
going to
few
say the
years
Reagan
back.
dinner was
Yeah.
great. It was a
And-
wonderful event.
I'd love to do something like that again. I'm looking for ideas for speakers who can kind of match Ron Johnson. Like that's
It's going
That's
to be
a
a
big
tough
one.
one. That's a tough one to fill.
it's a very tough one to fill.
Can do it though.
Oh yeah, no, so we'll do it. It'll be a great fundraising opportunity for the congressional district. And as we talked about earlier, focusing on local races from the state house, state senate level, all the way down to city council, county board, that sort of stuff. So those are the special projects I'd like to focus on, and whatever the chair and deputy chair have in mind for me.
Perfect. I appreciate that, and I appreciate both of you and all your time that you're putting into this. We look forward to working with you guys. It's something that I ever since the beginning have realized there are good people like yourselves that are willing to listen and hear the problems that you know maybe the candidates are having. You know, I remember my race and like William said, some primaries involved, and it was a pretty scary situation a lot of times because I was an outsider. I still feel like I'm a political outsider. Yes, I've been elected. I've been sitting there now almost 3 years, but the reality of the situation is until you're in the in crowd, you don't feel like you're in the in crowd. And I don't think I'll ever sacrifice my values to get in the in crowd. I would hope that we can just drag the in crowd to us.
Yep.
And that's the goal.
Amen.
So,
Yeah.
all right. Thank you too. We
you so
appreciate
much.
you.
Yeah, thank you,
And,
guys.
you know, we'll have part 2 here in just a moment.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.